Hi, I'm Tim.
Hi, I'm Jackie, and welcome to the Courageous Hearts podcast. If you think that you are choosing the wrong partner, this is the podcast for you. You're not choosing the wrong partner. You are actually recreating your childhood.
Right. And this is something that we do all the time
Yep.
when we talk about our belief systems and working with couples and even working with individuals. People so oftentimes think that how do I get in the same relationship over and over again?
That's right. It's like same person, different face.
Yep. And everyone we've asked that have been in relationships at the end of the day come to us and say, I feel like this is a rinse and repeat.
Mm-hmm. So I've heard you say something before that I think that I stole. By the way, I'm going to
Why are we stealing my stuff?
rat myself out here.
Why are we stealing?
But you say the belief system hits the door first.
Yes.
Can you explain what that means for our listeners?
We all have these belief systems, and these belief systems were started in our childhood,
Mm-hmm.
and they're protections.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of them. I'm not loved. I'm not good enough. I can't do anything right. I have to work really hard. I'm
People
not
are
going
gonna
to get what I
leave
want. People
me.
are going to leave me.
The world isn't safe.
Yep. The world isn't safe. And that comes from a childhood. That comes from our childhood when we had the experiences. For me, I can only speak to my experiences, which is probably pretty common, where I needed more than I was getting. And every time I looked to get more than I was getting, it wasn't there. It wasn't available.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like two aspects of what I did anyway. Was I was a big personality, and I consumed a lot of energy. However, in order to get by, I had to get small.
Mm.
And so there was two lessons taught to me there. It's like when I'm too big, it's too much. And then when I got small for survival, it wasn't enough.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't feel enough.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I felt in the relationship, even though there was some loving people around me. My dad loved me. My mom loved me. There was just a lot of moving parts.
Mm-hmm.
And when there's a lot of moving parts, and for me, when there's a lot of moving parts and a lot of people leaving,
Mm-hmm.
I go back to self, and I would say, like, look, I just can't get what I want here, and it's not enough. Therefore, I'm not enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's important to explain that this is not about our moms or dads being bad. This is about our moms and dads, our primary first relationships, while our brain is developing. So these belief systems are being developed while our brain is not fully developed. The part that can create logic and reason is not online yet. So our brain is trying to make sense of the world from a very egocentric perspective. So it's all about us. So if our moms and dads are not as available because they're working all the time, our brain doesn't have the ability to say, oh, my mom and dad aren't here because they're providing for us.
Right.
It's egocentric at this time in our life. I think it's up until like 7, 8 years old. So then it says, my mom, I'm not good enough to have my mom and dad be around, or I'm not lovable, or I'm not. And a lot of this happens on an unconscious level. I want to preface by saying that. And then they become this unconscious, like goggles or filter that we make sense of the world through.
Yes.
And then as we become young women or young men in this world and we start to look for partners, what we sometimes confuse as chemistry is really like the familiarity of this pattern.
Yes, and it's much of this, and we'll get into it later. And this is, and we also pick out of our need to heal.
For sure. I think that is the ultimate driver, is that on an unconscious level, we want to fix this.
Yes, we want to be connected. What we were, how we felt typically in our childhood, and again, that's a mild case that you're using, perhaps like, someone going to work or being a latchkey kid, and there's a bunch of different variations of that.
Sure.
And then for me, I always think about that. A primary hit was when, my mom and dad pick me up, pull me back and forth, and ask me to choose. Choose who you're going to live with, who you're going to be with. It was deeper than that, and it was a lot more emotional than that. And in that moment of time, in my choice, what I chose and what I got were two different things. Because I chose to live with my dad, and what I got was I stayed with my mom, and I was 4. And that message that I got in that moment of time was, 2, whatever you choose is wrong, not good enough. Like your choice isn't good enough. And then that just really bore all the way back to you're not good enough. And it felt like betrayal, I would say. Because if I look at my relationships, the ones that I've had up until this very day, and then we can talk about belief systems, how we create this too. However, it's all been around betrayal. Like all my relationships, I will take responsibility, by the way. All my relationships, if I were to look at them, it was like, oh, you betrayed me. You betrayed me. You betrayed me. Coming from a childhood where I felt betrayed by 2 parents that, put me in the middle of a situation at 4 that I had no business being in the middle. It was not my business. It wasn't I was weaponized, quite frankly, now that I think about that.
Yeah, and that dynamic, not being protected by your parents is a form of betrayal. Because their job is to take care of you, protect you, all the things our parents are supposed to do. And obviously, nobody was running out to get therapy at that time. So this is not about right or wrong. We can, I think there's always a reason, or good or bad. It's just about awareness, because I think our nervous system will always pick familiarity before it picks healthy until we interrupt the system.
Yes.
And we do that with awareness.
Yes.
So for me, how it shows up when we started doing this work, because we've done this work ourselves in our own life. This is not just something that we do with other people in our workshops and with our clients, but we've actually done this work personally, was my big belief system, because we have many belief systems, but the big one that was kind of really running the show was that I was not lovable.
Right.
And obviously it stemmed from a little girl who had no dad, and whose mom, was a teenage mom and really was trying to figure out the world, and not always in my best interest. And when I looked, because I think this came up when I was like 29 or 30, was when I had this insight in my work. When you looked at my track history of partners, I picked people that made my belief system true. So it was familiar. Now, don't get me wrong, I knew that I wasn't being treated the way I wanted to be treated. I knew that I wasn't a doormat in the sense where I just kind of allowed this to happen. Like I bitched and argued and broke up and got back together. But had I not had that belief system, had I not had that conditioning, I would not have lasted an hour in a relationship like that. And instead it was like 2 years, 3 years of back and forth. And, so when I had that insight and I started doing the work to heal the belief, it was like a magnet like I switched up magnets, like I was attracting all these people that made me, or that I felt, or that treated me like I was unlovable. Nobody can make me feel any way, but that were proving my belief system to be right. It's like I switched it, and then I created this magnet of people that saw how lovable I was and treated me with respect. And yeah, it's pretty magical doing this work.
I was telling someone the other day, if anyone thinks they get to have an extraordinary life, what we talk about so often, which is what we talk about in relationships, to not be doing the work, it's not possible.
Yeah.
You're not going to have an extraordinary life and not do the work.
No.
Because we're all left here with work. And I also know that there's a small piece here. We pick people that have the tenors of our childhood. We're drawn to them like magnets, and then we create
Exactly.
that in that experience. And how I would create it is, I know one way that was always pointed out to me is I would get stuck when someone would ask me to do something. So if Nicole would ask me to do something, I could be walking up to do it, and I would turn around and sit back down. And I was, I know it's kind of funny, right? And there was 3 incidences in the course of a week and a half that showed me, like, then I got an email from a woman that I was connected with that I worked with, and I didn't answer the email back. And she's like, when are you going to answer my email? And then I was putting my daughter to bed, and she had asked me for a glass of water. And I didn't say anything. And then she asked me for another glass of water. I didn't say anything. And then she asked me a third time for a glass of water. And I said, if you ask me for a glass of water again, I'll never get you water. And
you will be thirsty.
You will be thirsty. You will die of thirst before I get you water. And that was like a striking experience for me, because I was like, this is a 3-year-old.
Yeah.
And that was when and then I called my mom, because it was all like nagging to me.
Yeah.
And then I called my mom, and I was like, Ma, did you used to nag me as a kid? And she's like, you would never answer me.
Yeah.
Which is part of
Yeah.
a belief system. And then there it is. I created an experience where people were bothering me, and I created an experience where I felt put upon. And eventually at the end of the day, I'll push people away. And then this is the creation of that. And then I forced them
to turn
into the person that betrayed me.
Yeah.
And that's how it's simple. I mean, it's like a simple little turn for me to do that.
Yeah, of course. It's perspective, right? That's why I said they're like goggles or a filter. Because somebody asking you to do something can mean 25 different things. But in our filter, it means they're putting pressure on you.
Yep.
And they're nagging you.
Yep.
And then they turn into your mom.
Yep.
You brought up something really good around your daughter. Because this, I think, is that this was, first of all, I think it's like the biggest travesty of it all, is that this thing we do to our partners doesn't just stay contained within our partnerships. It actually then seeps into our parenting, and it is actually what brought me. I always say my kids are my greatest teachers, because it was what brought me to this deep level of work personally. Was I always thought growing up, I will never be like my mom. I will never be like my mom. I will never be like my mom. And then I had my first daughter, and she was really hyper. Elena was super hyper as a kid. And I think she was like 3 or 4, and I was trying to get her to bed, and I was overwhelmed, and she was jumping on her bed, and she kind of really wasn't listening, and I lost my shit. And I remember looking at her face, and I didn't, I just yelled, and I was like, it's time to go to bed. I was just frustrated, right? And I saw her face, and I was like, oh man, I got to learn to do this different. And the thing is, I wasn't saying the same words that my mom said, and I wasn't doing the same things that my mom did. But I was creating the same feelings that my mom created. So I turned into my mom in that moment. So until we start interrupting these, because my other belief system is I'm all alone. That's that's my other circle of beliefs. So when I get overwhelmed, I go straight into victim.
Right.
And I'm alone, and nobody helps me. And, it's the soap opera of my life. I create a soap opera of my life. And then my daughter got the wrath of how I show up when I feel powerless, which is through anger. That was such a pivotal moment. I'll never forget it, where I was like, I have to do this different. Because when we don't know what to do, we just go back to what we know. And we learn to parent, we learn to do relationships through our caregivers.
Yes. Yes.
So that's how I found this work, and it has changed my life. My daughter's now 17 years old, and we have a relationship beyond my wildest dreams.
Mm.
And had I not done this work, I'm going to get emotional. Had I not done this work, I would have probably had a very similar relationship to the one my mother and I have.
Yep.
Which has a lot of opportunity, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm grateful for that too, because had I not had that childhood, then I wouldn't be here today.
We get to heal, as to create a better life for the people that are around us. And it's interesting, as you're talking about your daughter, that was a lesson learned for you, and then now I'm learning lessons now about my daughter, about how I'm creating, because it's really because of belief system. Belief systems are so apparent, and so like I said, you said in the beginning of our podcast, it's like the belief system hits the door first, and then a belief system around that I can't trust women. Or I'm not good enough for women shows up in that relationship with my daughter.
Women are going to hurt you.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty bigger. The women are going to hurt me, and because I'm not good enough. The originator, the original sin is that I'm not good enough, and it shows up in areas when I get into protection. And this was just pointed out to me this week in therapy. When I get into protection, which I float around in from time to time, then I pull back. That's what happens for me. Like when I get in protection, I pull back this particular protection. And the way that it showed up with my daughter recently, Elena's older than Lucy, and Lucy's 13, is she's been pretty much doing what she wants to do when she wants to do it. And in that, it's created some space between her and I, and she's not being taught that I'm there for her as a father, which in essence is betrayal. Like, this is me doing what was done to me unbeknownst to me.
Yeah, and here's the fascinating part. Anybody that knows you sees you, and you're an amazing dad.
Sure.
You make it a point to cook for your kids every night. You're always, but I mean, you are an amazing dad. I just want to put that out there. And there's these little nuances in relationships that mean a lot.
Yep.
So if we're letting our child, listen, I'm going through it with my 17-year-old who has her first boyfriend and kind of wants to be with him all the time. And I get it. I was there. And you got to make time for family. Yep.
You do.
So, if she's hanging out with her friends every weekend, then I'm missing, we're missing out. Like, there's got to be balance, right? So, like, one weekend you get to be with your friends and your boyfriend, and one weekend you get to be with us. And her friend and her boyfriend I'm happy to have them there, most of the time. But yeah, there's just these little nuances. And I think because we've been doing this work personally, and we do this for others, we just happen to be super on top of these things. But from a standards perspective, anybody from the outside looking in would be like, you're amazing. What are you talking about?
I know. These are details.
They're details.
Yeah, they get, and believe it or not, what the devil's in the details. That's what they say all the time.
Well, you know what? The details is the difference between having a good relationship and having a great or extraordinary relationship with your kids, with your spouse. And I think that is the work that we do in our relationship, that we do with our children constantly.
That's right.
I mean, we were just with our mentor last night, and don't ever go to a therapist that doesn't have a therapist. I'll just say that.
That's for sure.
Our stuff, these original wounds, they never heal. Like, I have people that ask me that all the time. When will this heal? It'll never heal. They're created when your brain is developing. It's imprinted. What we learn is to recognize it. What we learn are the tools. What we learn are ways to do it better. So what I say is, like, I used to live in these belief systems. I don't live in these belief systems anymore. But from time to time, I might vacation there. Something might trigger me, and I'm like, oop. But I know it's happening, and I can get myself out of it. I know that I can call you. I have my support system. I can talk about it. I understand what's going on. But as far as like them being erased, I don't know that that's possible.
One of my old therapists, David, would always say to me that he would say the original sins, the original belief systems, the original protections, they don't get erased.
They don't get
We
erased.
we just get to do them better. And I wanted to share something quick because there's an antidote to this too. There's a way for them to get better is through boundaries. And through being honest
And being
about how you
honest.
feel.
Mm-hmm.
And then a quick thing that we could share that was just interesting. We do have a mentor that works with both of us and helps both of us and supports both of us.
Shout out to Rita.
Yes, a shout out to Rita, as we're all collectively connected. And she was redirecting me with some information that she had gotten from you just in a conversation. It didn't feel good, and I knew that I didn't give her the information.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew, so it felt in that moment like this is betrayal. Like it felt like that in that moment because I know what information I give and don't give. So in that moment, it felt like, oh, this is betrayal.
Mm-hmm.
And then I go down that highway. Oh, this is betrayal. And on some levels, it was. It was betrayal because it was information that she had gotten from you that was relayed to me. And when we were able to sit down and have a conversation about it, this is where the healing begins because
Sure.
we love her as a friend and as a mentor. We're all connected in this work, and she's taught us all this work. And when I said, "Hey, I have a request," and I said, "I don't care what you talk to Jackie about. That's your guys' business. It doesn't matter to me. And please don't bring information from Jackie about me into our relationship."
Yeah.
Upon the redirect because it feels like this and I want it to be clean. That corrected, and she was like, I'm sorry. That corrected the experience, which then says, oh, I'm not being betrayed. This is a healing moment where I'm taking care of a little boy that's good enough.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a corrective action and it's empowering.
Yes, it was.
It's empowering. Yeah, and let's not forget, you and I had the conversation the night before, and I took responsibility for my part in that. And I said, okay, next time I'll just say like the three of us should talk about it together.
That's right.
And I think that when we stand in a place of empowerment versus a place of victim, because victim would have been like, these two are talking about me, I don't feel safe, and which probably is the first hit, right?
Sure.
But when we could take a deep breath and kind of step in as the adult and say, no, I'm good enough. I can have this conversation. I'm in control of my safety.
Yep.
Then we can talk about it from a place of empowerment and love.
Yes. And to just tap on that belief system one more time that I'm not good enough. The other, I don't want to say antidote, but it feels like an antidote, is to choose you.
Yes.
Choose yourself.
Yes.
Like this is what I did last night and what I did when I called you. It was I chose me. I said, hey, what happened here? This is how I feel. And I stood in a place that isn't comfortable to stand.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, it's not a place that's easy for me to stand. It's gotten easier because I have practiced it. I built a lot of trust in you. Like I know you got my back 100%. And so that's the easy space. And then it makes it easier because it's a practice skill now. Doesn't disappear though. The I'm not good enough disappears.
Look, it's amazing, right? I'm probably the closest person to you.
Yep.
You trust me wholeheartedly.
I do.
And that belief system or that belief still creeps up in those moments, knowing that I'm the last person that would ever betray you.
I know.
Right? But this is just such a good example of how our mind, jumps in and starts to spiral when we're in that spot.
Yes.
So, and the thing I love the most about doing this work is that we don't all have the same experiences, but there's only there's a handful of beliefs.
Yep.
There's when we really kind of funnel down to the big, when you funnel down, there's only really 10, 12 big ones.
Yep.
So we can relate to one another on a level that is authentic and with empathy. And that could be really healing. when we do these workshops, we do workshops with our couples, we do individuals, where the first part of this workshop, this is exactly what we do, is our circle of belief. We have all of our clients or participants in the workshop, everybody does their own circle of belief. We do that first before we do anything else, before we talk about communication, before we talk about intimacy, because we have to know what we are creating in these relationships. What is the underlying story that we're bringing in to all of our relationships? Because without that, then it's just technique, right? Like if you start with I statements, then that's how you should communicate. Yes, and what are you bringing into this relationship? Because we got to look at why things are being created, not just how to teach you new skills.
Yep. Which is high level responsibility. I know we've talked about that before.
Well, it's the only way to really change your life. So wait, what's that old saying? Like, if I give you fish, you can eat for a day. But if I teach you how to fish,
if I give you fish,
if I give you a fish,
that's right. We want to. We
so
to be able to do.
So if I could teach you what you're creating and why you're creating it,
I want to be that.
Then give you the tools on how to fix it. That's how you really change somebody's life, somebody's relationship, somebody's parenting. And it shows up everywhere. It's not just in relationship. It's how you do your job. It's what, it's really the driver in how we show up in our lives.
It's the right, like you said earlier, it hits the door first. And one of the places it shows up more than anywhere is just in these intimate relationships, regardless of if they're with your girlfriend, fiance, wife, mentor. I mean, it's in the scope of these intimate relationships that they're really prevalent, because that's where the damage came.
Yeah.
There was an intimacy as a child. It's life or death as a child. It's I need you to take care of me as a child. And that's a primary fundamental need. And when we recognize energetically as children that gets disrupted, we immediately go into survival. Immediately.
Yep. And we can live there for the rest of our life.
We can, which is what you had said earlier. It's all victim.
It's all victim. Yeah. Which we got to talk about in another podcast, because it's not your movie version of a victim.
No.
Somebody's like, so that's good for our next podcast. So stay tuned, everybody.
Yeah.
So as we close this out, what are just some 2 to 3 top points that you'd like our listeners to take away from this podcast?
I'd like to everyone to know that all of us have a belief system that runs our life. And I'd also like them to know that there is a solution to that. And, part of those are boundaries. Part of those, it's honesty, integrity, and
our workshops,
our
book, Courageous Connection.
Right. All of that. And then being with people that are doing the work. Yeah. That's a big piece of this. Like, I want to be I get to be with the people that are driving, I believe like what we put together with Courageous Hearts, what we have done in the book, that are driving a movement of healing, because the world needs a movement of healing.
I love that. I don't think I have much to add.
Oh, but you're so special. I think you do.
I think ditto.
Perfect.
Ditto what he said. Well, Tim, it is always a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for all of it.
Thank you.
And thank you for everybody that is listening and that supports our work. And as I said earlier, we have our book, Courageous Connections, on Amazon, on barnesandnobles.com. And we do workshops. You can find us at our website, Courageous heartscoaching.com. All right, guys, we're out. Thank
Peace.
you.
Have a good day.